做无的，做无的。我知道，我无论要求什么事吧，终归要拿这句客家话来拒绝我。我想，总有一天，我要迈上那3层台阶，走进那黑洞洞的大门里去的。惠安馆的疯子我看见好几次了，每一次只要他站在门口，宋妈或者妈就赶快捏紧我的手，轻轻说：“疯子。”我们便擦着墙边走过去。我如果要回头再张望一下时，他们就用力拉我的胳膊制止我。其实那疯子还不就是一个梳着油松大辫子的大姑娘，像张家李家的大姑娘一样。她总是倚着门墙站着，看来来往往过路的人。是昨天，我跟着妈妈到罗马市的佛照楼去买东西，妈是去买擦脸的鸭蛋粉，我呢，就是爱吃那里的八珍梅。我们从罗马市大街回来，穿过蔚染胡同、西草场，到了春树胡同的井窝子，井窝子斜对面就是我们住的这条胡同。刚一进胡同，我就看见惠安馆的疯子了。他穿了一身绛紫色的棉袄，黑绒的毛窝，头上留着一排刘海，辫子上扎的是大红绒绳。他正把大辫子甩到前面来，两手玩弄着辫梢，愣愣地看着对面人家院子里的那棵老杨槐。干树枝子上有几只乌鸦，胡同里没什么人。妈正低头嘴里念叨着，准是在算她今天共买了多少钱的东西，好跟无事不操心的爸爸报账。所以妈没留神，已经走到了灰瓦馆。我跟在妈的后面，一直看疯子，竟忘了走路。这时疯子的眼光从杨槐上落下来，正好看到我，他眼珠不动地盯着我，好像要在我的脸上找什么。他的脸白得发青，鼻子尖有点红，大概是冷风吹动的，尖尖的下巴，两片薄嘴唇紧紧地闭着。忽然他的嘴唇动了，眼睛也眨了2下，带着笑，好像要说话，弄着辫梢的手也向我伸出来，招我过去呢。不知怎么，我浑身大大的打了一个寒战，跟着我就随着他的招手和笑意要向他走去。可是妈回过头来了，突然把我一拉：“怎么啦，你？”我有点迷糊。妈看了疯子一眼，说：“为什么打哆嗦？是不是怕？是不是要泌尿？快回家！”我的手被妈使劲拖拉着。回到家来，我心里还惦念着疯子的那副模样。他的笑不是很有意思吗？如果我跟他说话，我说：“嘿，他会怎么样呢？”我愣愣地想着，懒得吃晚饭，实在也是八珍梅吃多了。但是晚饭后，妈对宋妈说：“英子一定吓着了。”然后给我沏了碗白糖水，叫我喝下去，并且命令我钻被窝睡觉。这时，我的辫子梳好了，追了宋妈去买菜。她在前面走，我在后面跟着。她的那条恶心的大黑棉裤那么厚，那么肥，裤脚附着。别人告诉妈说，北京的老妈子很会偷东西，他们偷了米就一把一把顺着裤腰装进裤兜子，刚好落到附着的裤脚管里，不会露出来。我在想，宋妈的肥裤脚里不知道有没有我家的白米。经过惠安馆，我向里面看了一下，黑门大开着，门道里有一个煤球炉子，那疯子的妈妈和爸爸正在炉边煮什么。大家都管疯子的爸爸叫长班老王，长班就是给会馆看门的，他们住在最临街的一间屋子。宋妈虽然不许我看疯子，但是我知道她自己也很爱看疯子，打听疯子的事，只是不许我听我看就是了。宋妈这时也向惠安馆里看，正好疯子的妈妈抬起头来，她和宋妈两人同时说吃了马您。爸爸说，北京人一天到晚闲着没有事，不管什么时候见面都要问吃了没有。出了胡同口往南走几步就是井窝子，这里满地是水，有的地方结成薄薄的冰，独轮的水车来一辆去一辆，他们扭着屁股推车，车子滋滋哑妞的响，好刺耳，我要堵起耳朵啦。 井窝子有2个人在向深井里打水，水打上来倒在一个好大的水槽里，推水的人就在大水槽里接了水，再送到各家去。井窝子旁住着一个我的朋友，和我一般高的妞。我这时停在井窝子旁边不走了，对宋妈说：宋妈，你去买菜，我等妞。我第一次是在油盐店里看见她的。那天她2只手端了2个碗，拿了一大枚，又买酱，又买醋，又买葱，伙计还逗着说：妞，唱一段才许你走。妞眼里含着泪，手摇晃着，醋都要洒了。我有说不出的气恼，一下窜到妞身旁，叉着腰问他们：凭什么？就这样，我认识了妞。妞只有一条辫子，又黄又短，像妈在土地庙给我买的小狗的尾巴。第2次看见妞，是我在井窝子旁边看打水。她过来了，一声不响地站在我身边，我们2相对着笑了笑，不知道说什么好。等一会儿，我就忍不住去摸她那条小黄辫子了，她又向我笑了笑，指着后面，低低的声音说：你就住在那条胡同里。我说。第几个门？我伸出手指头来算了算，1、2、3、4，第4个门。到我们家去玩。他摇摇头说：你们胡同里有疯子，妈不叫我去。怕什么？他又不吃人。他仍然是笑笑地摇摇头。妞一笑，眼底下鼻子2边的肉就会有2个小漩涡，很好看。可是宋妈竟跟油盐店的掌柜说，这孩子长得俊倒是俊，就是有点薄，眼睛太透亮了，老像水汪着。你看，眼底下有2个泪颗。我心里可是有说不出的喜欢他，喜欢他那么温和，不像我一急，宋妈就骂我的，又跳。小暴雷。那天他跟我在井窝子边站一会儿，就小声地说：我要回去了，我爹等着我吊嗓子。赶迷见，我在井窝子旁跟妞见过几次面了，只要看见红棉袄裤从那边闪过来，我就满心的高兴。可是今天等了好久都不见他出来，很失望。我的绒褂子口袋里还藏着一小包八珍梅，要给妞吃的。我摸，发热了，包的纸都破烂了，黏糊糊的。宋妈洗衣服时，我还得挨她一顿骂。我觉得很没意思，往回家走。我本来想今天见妞的话，就告诉她一个好主意，从横胡同穿过到我家，就用不着经过惠安馆，不用怕看见疯子了。我低头这么想着，走到惠安馆门口了。嘿，吓了我一跳，正是疯子，咬着下嘴唇，笑着看我。他的眼睛真透亮，一笑眼底下，就像宋妈说的，怎么也有2个泪颗呀。我想看清楚他，我是多么久以前就想看清楚他的。我不由得对着他的眼神走上了台阶。
No, you can't, Dad had said, switching to his native Hakka dialect. Whatever my request, Dad always used these Hakka words to say no. I'd been thinking then that one of these days I would walk up those 3 stone steps and through those black doors. I'd seen the mad woman at Huian court several times now. Whenever they saw her standing in the doorway, Nanny Song or Mum would give my hand a quick squeeze and whisper, "The mad woman," and we would hurry past, almost brushing against the wall on the far side. If I turned my head to look, they would stop me by tugging my arm. Actually, the mad woman was just a girl who had a shiny, thick plait, like the Jiang or Li girls. She was always leaning against the doorway watching the passers-by. The day before, I had gone with Mum to Fo Jiao Lu's store on Luo Marche Street to buy some things. Mum needed some face powder cakes, and me, well, I went because I loved their preserved plums. On our way back from Luo Marche Street, we passed through Weiran Alley, then along Shikao Chang Street to the well in Chun Shu Alley, which stood opposite the alley in which we lived. When we turned into our alley, I saw the mad woman of Huian Court. She was wearing a purplish padded jacket and black flannel padded shoes. She had a fringe, and Her braid was tied with a piece of bright red yarn. This big braid was swung to the front, and she was playing with its tip, but her eyes were fixed on the old acacia tree in the courtyard opposite. There were a few crows on the bare branches of the tree, but no one other than us in the alley. Mum was walking with her head down and talking to herself. I was quite sure she was counting how much money she had spent that day so that she could account for it to Dad, who concerned himself with everything. Thus she did not realize that we had reached Huian Court. I was walking behind her, and as I kept staring at the mad woman, I simply forgot to move. Just at that moment the mad woman lowered her eyes from the tree and saw me. As she gazed at my face, she appeared to be searching for something. Her face was pale, almost bluish, and the tip of her nose was red, probably bitten by the cold wind. She had a pointed chin, and her thin lips pressed tightly against each other. Suddenly her lips moved. Blinking twice, she smiled and seemed to be about to say something. She stopped playing with her braid and held her hand out towards me, beckoning me over, I thought. Suddenly a quiver went through my whole body. I made a move towards her outstretched hand and smiling face, but at that moment Mum turned and gave me a shove. "What's wrong with you?" I was a little confused. "Why are you quivering?" Mum glanced at the mad woman and asked, "Are you afraid? Do you want to wee-wee? Come on," she said, tugging on my hand. We got home, but my mind was still on the mad woman. Wasn't her smile sweet? I thought to myself, what if I said hi to her? What would she do? I didn't feel like having dinner. Actually, I'd eaten too many preserved plums. But after dinner, Mum said to Nanny Song, "Ying Zi must have suffered a shock." She then prepared some sugar water, made me drink it, and ordered me off to bed. By this time my braids were done, and I followed Nanny Song to the market. She walked in front and I tagged along. Her disgusting black padded pants looked so thick, so bulky, with the cuffs tied to her ankles. Mum had been told that maid-servants in Peking always stole things. They would steal rice, and handful by handful, slip it past their trouser waist and let it drop down into their trousers. As the cuffs were tied around their ankles, the rice wouldn't fall out. I wondered if there was any of our family's rice down Nanny Song's bulky trouser legs. As we walked past Huian Court, I peeped inside. The black doors were flung wide open. In the doorway I saw a coal stove, and the mad woman's mum and dad were leaning over it, cooking something. Everyone called the mad woman's dad Old Wang the caretaker. He was the doorkeeper of Huian Court, and he and his family lived in a room fronting the alley. I knew Nanny Song loved to watch and gossip about the mad woman, even though she didn't allow me to do so. At that moment she was also looking in the direction of Huian Court. The mad woman's mum looked up, and she and Nanny Song said in unison, "Have you eaten yet?" Dad said people in Peking idle around all day, and when they meet somebody, regardless of the time of day, always ask if they've eaten or not. A little to the south of the alley stood the well. There was water all over the place, and patches of thin ice could be seen here and there. Single-wheeled water carts came and went one after another. The carters, their bottoms twisting, pushed their creaking carts. What a terrible sound! I really had to put my hands over my ears. 2 men were drawing water from the deep well and pouring it into a big trough from where the carters drew it for delivery. Next to the well lived a friend of mine, Niur, who was just as big as me. I stopped next to the well and said to Nanny Song, "Nanny, you go to the market. I'll wait here for Niur." I first met Niur at the grocer's. That day she was holding 2 bowls in her hands, having just paid a copper coin for some sauce, vinegar, and spring onions. The shopkeepers teased her, saying, "Niur, sing us a song or we won't let you go." Niur had tears in her eyes, and her hands were shaking so much the vinegar almost spilled. I was so angry that I darted to Niur's side and, putting my hands on my hips, demanded of them, "Who do you think you are?" That was how I came to know Niur. Niur wore only a single pigtail, brownish and short like the tail of the puppy Mum had bought me at the temple of the Earth God. The second time I saw her I was at the well watching people fetch water. She came over and quietly stood next to me. We looked at each other and smiled, not knowing what to say. After a moment, I couldn't resist touching her tiny brown pigtail. Again she smiled. "Do you live in that alley?" she asked in a low voice, pointing behind us. "Uh-huh." "What number?" I held out my hand and started counting with my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, number 4. Let's go back to my house and play. Shaking her head, she said, "There's a mad woman in your alley. Mum told me not to go near her." "What are you afraid of? She's not going to eat you." She shook her head, still smiling. Every time Niur smiled, dimples appeared under her eyes right beside her nose. They looked lovely, but Nanny Song had said to the shopkeeper, "The girl's pretty, one must admit, but she has a fragile, ill-fated look about her. The eyes are too bright, too watery. Look, there are 2 tear dimples under her eyes. But I liked her so much. I liked her for being so sweet and gentle, quite unlike me. Every time I got irritable, Nanny Song would scold me, flying into a rage again, 'You little terror.' That day, after standing with me for a while at the well, Niur whispered, 'I have to go. Dad's waiting for me. I have to do my voice practice. See you.' I had met Niur several times by the side of the well and was so happy every time I saw her sneaking over in her red padded pants. That day, I waited and waited, but she didn't show up. I was very disappointed, as in the pocket of my woolen jacket I had a packet of preserved plums which I had been saving for her. They sat there, warm and sticky because the wrapping paper was torn. I knew I would get a good scolding from Nanny Song when she did the washing. Feeling dejected, I headed for home. I was thinking that if I'd seen Niur today, I would have told her about my good idea, that if we walked home through the side lane, we could bypass Huian Court and avoid seeing the mad woman. I walked with my head down, thinking until I found myself at the front door of Huian Court. Hi, I got such a start. It was the mad woman. Biting her lower lip, she smiled at me. Her eyes were so bright, and beneath her smiling eyes, why, there were 2 tear dimples like Nanny Song had described. I wanted to take a better look at her, something I had meant to do for a long time. Drawn by her eyes, I walked up the steps. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next video.